Hey everybody, welcome back to another in-depth breakdown. Today I'm going to be going over with you guys on Stockton Lake, covering over the summer patterns that bass have out here. During this time of year, we're talking about June, July, and August. There's also other phases that happen during and through that. They can still spawn through some of these months, so if you guys want to check out the spawn and the post-spawn videos that I have out for Stockton Lake, I'll have a link up there in the upper right to both of those, as well as at the end of the video if you guys want to go catch that. But before I go any further, if you are new to the channel or are not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And if you like this content, drop a thumbs up down below. It really helps support me and helps this channel grow. Without further ado, let's get right into this thing. So after the water temperature really gets over 80 degrees, the bass don't spawn anymore. It gets too warm for them. So once that water temperature starts getting up there, and that usually happens sometime in July or August, those bass are pretty much going to be in a summer pattern and they're not going to be looking up to go and spawn anymore. Those backwaters and some of these creek channel coves here that they were going back into are really going to be kind of vacant after a certain point, and they're going to be a lot more centered around the main lake again, and offshore structure on the main lake really becomes a key holding spot for a lot of these bass. Stockton Lake is a pretty good sized lake. It's over 238 miles of shoreline on it. It's got some really nice sized bass that are in there. State record smallmouth came out of this lake. Largemouth and spotted bass are pretty good in numbers, especially in the upper 2/3 of the lake. Smallmouth are more common towards the northern top third of the lake over here, towards the dam. That's where a lot more of the smallmouth are caught. The water's deeper, a little bit cleaner, a lot more rock structure. The upper sections have more timber and more of a stain to murky water color in general compared to the lower end. Really, those upper ends can heat up a little bit faster than the lower end, so if you're looking to get on more of a summertime pattern bite, you want to start on the upper end of the lake and work your way to the north, because it's going to be warmer on the southern ends of the Stockton, where it's shallower channels and they heat up a little bit faster with that murkier water. This time of year, thunderstorms and any kind of cold rain really turns on a bite. We get a little bit of a prefrontal condition coming in, and those fish start to get active. Places that these fish like to sit out on during the summer months are offshore structures such as islands, main lake points, any kind of current break, bigger boulders and stuff. A lot of times hold pretty good numbers of fish. Bigger channel kind of banks that have more of a hard cut into them as currents coming down through the main channel here. Any kind of point that sticks out and kind of cuts adjacent to that flow is going to get a lot more current moving along it. And current this time of year, when that water temperature is really high, is really great for those bass because it's got a little bit more oxygen. You have your forage that's there. The active bass are always going to be around some sort of forage, so you want to be around schools of shad or bluegill. Crawfish are always going to be in the rocks, usually on these bigger points and different bluff ends and everything. There's just a lot of area the crawfish can be in. There's a lot of bigger rock in it, and that current's moving through. Those are going to be key areas I'm going to be looking for during the summertime, where there's some quick access to deeper water nearby. For example, I'll go in over here on this point and show you guys what I'm talking about here. There's a lot of deep water over here. It's 60 feet over here to the right side of your screen, and it comes up pretty fast. Over about a 50-foot change in water depth in a very short section right there. Those are the kind of points I'm going to be looking for, areas where they can come up in the evenings and early mornings, and a lot of times you'll see those fish coming up and busting on the surface. They'll be taking out shad as they're trapped against the surface of the water, and you'll be able to catch quite a few of those fish with swim baits in the middle of the water column, topwater baits, early morning and evening. You can catch them with crankbaits, deep diving crankbaits, shallow crankbaits. Really depends on where they are in the water column. And you can catch some of those fish in the middle of the day that are over here that usually drop off of that first big drop off these points, and they'll sit down there suspended. You can catch them with different kind of baits. Finesse baits work really good for that. Weightless flukes, drop shot rigs, Ned rigs. A lot of the times, early morning and evenings when those fish get active in the middle of the day, they're pretty hard to catch. You can still grind out a few bites with finesse baits, but it's going to be a lot more of a grind for you to get bit. I'm going to show you guys another area over here I'm going to be looking for. This old riverbed here kind of comes in and swings right up against this bank. Any of this point all the way down through in this section here, it's got a really deep water access point right off of it. And then there's this main lake point here where it just kind of jets out, where the old channel has kind of carved it. And that bluff continues, but it continues under the water. And it's a very hard, sharp jump right there next to where all this would be very deep and over 80 feet of water, where that current's going to be moving through as it's getting pulled through the dam. A lot of these reservoir style lakes like Stockton is still have a little bit of current running through on the bottom, and that will help position some of these fish. I find that the early morning is slightly better than the evening bite in general, because typically that's when it's coolest out. The nighttime bite for bass can be good during this time of year as well. Some of these bass, even though they're not nocturnal, will still hunt a little bit at night. If you guys go after these fish at night, use more of a Colorado style blade with a lot of thump on it with a spinnerbait, something that's got a lot of noise or something with a lot of thump. You want to try to get them to feed off of feel as opposed to sight. Use darker colors. It sounds kind of weird, but the darker colors actually stand out a little bit better, gives them more of a silhouette for them to track in. So like a big black spinnerbait with a Colorado blade works great. A deep diving crankbait will even work at night a little bit because it's got a lot of vibration coming off of it. If you can find any kind of standing timber on these points or any kind of brush pile that are there as well, those are going to be key areas, especially during the middle of the day whenever the sun gets up overhead. Those fish really kind of key in on a lot of that shade. So if you can find those areas and use some of the different Texas rig style curly tail grubs and work their way through those bigger brush piles and stuff, you can catch some really nice largemouth by doing that. This little island over here in the middle of the lake as well has got a pretty sharp break all around it. There's a little bit of an extra point that kind of sticks off over here on the left side. So you guys can see it kind of tapers out a little bit more over here, and it's a really hard cut down here towards the southern part of this island. Anywhere along in here, the bass can like to sit up on. The offshore spots really get a lot better during the time of year whenever the water temperature is really pretty warm. There's some other islands down in through here over by Crabtree Cove. The dam itself is pretty good this time of year as the current's kind of moving through, and you guys can see that old river channel right there by that white as it's going out the dam here. So when that thing's sucking out water, there's some current that comes along the face of this riprap dam that's along in through here where it's pretty deep. So those bass will be up in there at times. They'll be over here. There's a couple little shelves and kind of an old channel, and that could be a really hot spot this time of year, especially if there's some water running through there. You can use topwater baits early morning and usually catch them while they're trying to feed up on shad. Any of the points down here towards the end of this lake have a lot of current rushing by them, sharper breaks over here off these bluff ends. Same kind of areas you'd find these fish in the wintertime, but you get to fish a lot more aggressively, a lot more different style baits, and you get to catch a lot more fish faster. I think you can power fish, especially in those early morning and evening hours when those fish are more active. Moving up here to the upper third of the lake over here, says almost to the river. We're in largemouth territory now, less smallmouth are up in this section. This area over in through here is a lot shallower, but these areas where there's still a very, very tight bank, it's got a lot of current pushing through here, especially this little bottleneck area in through here. There's a lot of rock and bluffy structure, and any kind of brush piles you guys can find in this section are going to hold fish, especially when there's current running. And right off the end of this big point here is going to hold some fish. As you guys can see, the current kind of cuts across over here at a diagonal across the channel, and then smacks right into this bank where it gets to be about 30 feet deep on this side, and that will hold quite a few fish as well because it's got little lips and everything in there. It's a good wintertime spot as well. I'm just going to be fishing those during this time of year as well. They're kind of moved back out of the backs of those coves a lot of the time, especially if you guys can find any kind of bait fish along in those sections. Those are going to be great areas to catch some of these fish. It just kind of keeps continuing with that pattern as this section of the lake has got a lot of channel swings. This area over here has even got some flooded timber and an old creek bed coming out of this area next to a point, and this little island over here kind of sticks out. There's all kinds of little nuances about this area in the upper section as well. So whether you're fishing the upper area over here closer towards Aldrich, or you're down here closer towards Stockton itself, there's bass all over this lake. Like I said, if you just want to catch smallmouth, I'd go down to the lower end, closer towards Stockton. If you want to catch more largemouth, go up towards Aldridge or over on the other side, and closer down here towards the west by Mutton Creek area and Glentown. Those are going to be better areas for your largemouth. If you guys have a question, video idea, or comment for me, leave it down below this video in the comment section. Drop a thumbs up down below if you guys enjoyed this video or found this video helpful. I'll make sure to do more videos like this in the future. Until then, guys, tight lines, explore deeper, and we'll catch you on the next one.